It has only been 1 week since we made this garden bed and planted these squash and onions in it and transplanted them from our house. This is everything that's kind of growing inside. Even the onions I started inside in a 1020 tray from Bootstrap Farmer, and that is this tray over here. Let me show you if you've never seen one before. It's this tray, and it's designed so you can start plants in it, but also so it can water these plants, or these trays are different size trays right here, and they're one of the best trays I've ever had. These are kind of stacked 2 deep, and I absolutely love them. They've lasted us over 2 years of really heavy use right now, so I'm thankful for that. And so you can see how big all of these squash have gotten. I know you're seeing my shadow like usual. Anytime I come out here early in the morning, my shadow's gonna get in the way because of the way the sun rises and sets in our yard. So look how big these are. I cannot believe it. They grew so big. You can see some yellowing still. I really need to get some compost down, which I'll do, but it's gonna be a minute because I'm having surgery next Friday, and so I'm not gonna be able to do a lot of heavy lifting or anything else. I'm probably gonna have my husband come out here and mulch the beds, and he's not really a gardener. He knows kind of what's going on because I talk about it constantly, but other than that, it's not really his thing. So he does have some experience with his grandparents growing up. He was raised by them, and so hopefully, you know, that'll be enough to kind of get him through everything. But I'm excited to see how much these plants will grow in the next 2 weeks while I am down, and I'm just amazed by them. So if you recall that this is topsoil, but the reason that we did topsoil is underneath it, there are actually wood chips with a nitrogen source from our ducks. And so I didn't want to plant into those or put them on top where they could burn my plants. So I put them underneath and then put the topsoil on top, and then I'll put compost on top of that to act as a mulch, but also continue to break down and provide nutrients without burning the roots to our plants or taking nitrogen away from plants. I definitely don't want to do that. That happened to me last year before I really learned about how nitrogen leaching works in the soil. You can see there are some damage from it rained last night, and all this dirt's kind of popping up onto the plants. So that's what I'm trying to avoid, especially as fruit starts to develop. But you can see, look at all of this development down there. These are the calabaza, and they're a very prolific squash. They only take 42 to 50 days to start producing. So that's why it was so important for me to kind of get a head start in growing them and get them out here early before the squash bugs really take over this garden space, because that is what they will do. And then in between, I have a hard time reaching into this with ease. I mean, it's only 4 foot wide, about 4 foot wide, maybe a little more, and so I can easily reach all the way into the center of the bed, but it's uncomfortable right now with all of the personal issues I have going on. So I planted something like these onions, for one, that need to be transplanted, but for two, because they can grow into June when they start really bulbing, and I don't have to worry about trying to come and pick them constantly like a squash or tomato or eggplant or any kind of warm weather plant that needs picking a lot more. I can come and take the greens if I want to, but really my plan is just to let them do their own thing, and then the kids and my husband can kind of come out here and harvest the young squash off these plants and really save me a lot of work, and it should be fairly easy to manage. So that's the good thing. Now I'm walking back over here because I don't know if you'll be able to see them with my shadow. I threw a bunch of watermelon radishes. The packet says they're 60 days, and they're really beautiful radishes. This is a Chinese variety, and you can see that I've already popped up. I just threw them out less than 2 days ago, and they've already popped up and started doing their thing. So that's really cool. I could have sown them, you know, but I just kind of broadcasted them randomly, just kind of tossed them into there like this, and let them land where they were gonna land. I'll thin them out. It's not that big of a deal because we eat the greens and radishes. You can hear we actually have a airfield nearby, so what you're hearing is the planes and stuff flying over. Now, I could have sown these in a straight line, but it won't matter because radishes, just like onions and turnips, carrots, you can eat the entire plant. And so all of the greens are edible, and for radishes, they can get a little spiny if they're larger radish leaves, but if you cook them down, they actually get really sweet, and radishes are great for grating, chopping up in stir fries, baking. I mean, there are so many things, and if you get larger radishes, you can actually mash them up into like mashed potatoes, and they're a little sweeter that way, and the same for turnips. So there are so many options for them. That's why I'm not worried about planting them so close together. And in this area, you can see, oh, they're definitely a lot closer together all throughout here. So it's just a way of kind of filling the space and then filling the space again. So what I did initially was plant all of these squash into this bed, and then all the space in between them I planted onions about 4 inches apart so they can grow up. Some are further. It's really not an exact measurement. It just kind of put them in there. It looks right. Fill in here, you know. And then all of the space was still left. So I kind of lost my train of thought and where I was. I think it was talking about the watermelon radishes and filling everything in, because halfway through the video, my little brother called. I sent him on an errand to go get some drinks for us from the local coffee shop. And so he's kind of walking and zoned out and ended up twice as far as he planned on it, which is fine. We do live in the city, but we live in a smaller town outside of a bunch of really large towns like Houston, and so we're able to kind of walk to a lot of things, which is really nice. It's one of the reasons why we chose this location, aside from growing up and graduating from the area. So I definitely just don't remember exactly where I was. I'm gonna go back, and when I put all of these little videos together into one long video, I'll be laughing because I'll be like, oh, that's where I was. Oh man, I can lose my train of thought so easily. So basically I planted all of these squash here, and then I was like, there's so much space left. I planted all of the onions in between, and there was still all of the space left. So I broadcasted a bunch of watermelon radish seeds that have already started sprouting. And I'm really excited to see how these grow. It's pretty warm, but like it's dropped back down into the 60s today. And it won't go below that. But it's still cool enough that the radishes won't suffer like they will in like the heat of the summer, because it gets really hot really fast. So unfortunately for me, like if I wanted to get tomatoes out, I only have about a month or two before I should really be transplanting them, but I haven't even started the seeds. And I'm hoping that they grow half as fast as the squash, but the reality is, with me needing to build new beds, plus surgery and everything else happening, I just don't think that I'm going to be able to grow all the tomatoes that I wanted to this year, which is fine, because come fall, I know I'll be in a position where I can actually get a bunch of planters in that are much deeper. I'm thinking at least 20 to 30 inches deep. And then I'll be able to grow the tomatoes and everything that I want to grow without any issues whatsoever. So that would be great. So here's the potato that I transplanted, and while there is some sadness at the bottom from being transplanted, it actually survived, and it's still producing the little tubers below the soil line. So I'm just going to let it continue to do its thing and hope that it turns out well. I'm really excited about that. And then over here, where we were trying to figure out in our last video when we talked about these, exactly where to put everything and what to fill in, And we ended up putting the lettuce in these beds and spacing them apart, and my oldest son helped with that because it was too much on my abdomen and back to bend over like that. It was really uncomfortable. And so I'm hoping after I have this procedure done that I'll be able to bend and do more things, but right now it's pretty rough. So I'm very blessed to have all the help that I have. And if you're in a position where you really want to garden and you have help available, don't be stubborn like me. Take the help, you know, if you can get it. And I'm kind of in a position where my kids want to start kind of getting out there, earning a living and everything else. Just little pocket change because they're still children. And even my little brother. So if that means paying him a little bit of money to help let him have some independence and help me with my garden, that kind of helps too. But if you have family members or anyone that's willing to help, or you can give them some of your produce, or there are just so many different ways that it could work out. You'd be amazed. I know not everyone has that help available, but if you do have it available, don't be stubborn like me and end up putting yourself in a worse position because you don't want to accept the help. Just let them help you, because you could start this beautiful garden which will be able to grow while I'm down and out the next couple of weeks. And so what we did is transplanted all of the cimarron lettuce that we started inside, and you can see now that it's outside kind of in the sun in the cooler weather, ooh, it's so red. It's gorgeous. So some of it kind of flattened in the rain last night. That's okay. It's starting to pop back up in a lot of areas. It's looking good. And then around these poles we're going to plant some beans or peas. It really depends how cool the weather stays. But if it's going to get back up to as hot as it was yesterday, which is in the 80s, yeah, we're going to have to start planting green beans and probably some heat-loving ones. So I do have a couple of rattlesnake beans left, and I've been really wanting to save seeds from those, but they've been harder to find the last couple of years since COVID, and like everyone's been so into gathering seeds and growing their own food, which is great, but it's not good if you want to find rattlesnake bean seeds. And so I have been like holding on to these seeds, refusing to plant them until I know that, you know, I will have some success growing them, because they are absolutely my favorite bean. They are gorgeous. And they are, I can just eat them raw, no problem. Plus you can dry them for soup beans, and they grow so well in our Texas heat, especially during droughts. So definitely want to plant something around these 4 poles. And my aunt was on my YouTube last night, or the night before last, and she had this really lovely idea, which I didn't even think about. Obviously we talked about planting the pole beans here with the lettuce, but she was like, hey, plant the lettuce and then go ahead and put your peas and face the opening through the tree line. What she's talking about is this right in here that is really shaded, which is such a good idea, because the way our property sits, our house faces north and everything else is kind of east to west. So facing it this direction will keep the sun from kind of entering inside. And with the sun not being able to hit the lettuce because of how the tree line falls, it will keep it from bolting sooner. Plus the beans or peas or whatever we plant will kind of provide some shade. I did think about planting some squash with the beans, but the reality is the beans are going to quickly, or peas, either one, will quickly shade out all of this lettuce. So I'm thinking this will be a bean trellis, and then for certain over here will end up being our pea trellis for now. And then once those peas are done, because I ended up buying a packet of burpees peas, not realizing that I already had another packet of peas. So I have over 600 to 900 pea seeds right now. It's absolutely ridiculous how many peas I have. And the variety I have, I think, are only about 2.5 to 3 feet tall. So this fence will be perfect because it's only 38 inches. It's 36 inches to, or 39 inches to the top of these poles. And then of course this fence will be cut down to be below that because it's just a gardening fence. And over time we're actually gonna do a really pretty weaving pattern. It kind of does like a snake like this, of a wooden fence, and weave it back in between some nice round wooden posts and do it about with 16-foot boards. That way it can weave through a couple posts. I think that will be absolutely gorgeous. It's actually my husband's idea, and it's an incredible idea, and I love whimsical. Obviously, look at my garden beds. And so I'm so excited to have like this beautiful whimsical space for me. It's been really important to kind of establish, and before I really was in a position where we could invest the money into getting this garden going, I found this book. I can't remember the author. I'm gonna have to look it up, and maybe I can take a picture of it and leave it here for everyone. And it was a book about turning your garden into your sanctuary and the different ways you can make it beautiful and relaxing and attract yourself out to it, so you'll want to work and hang out in it. And I thought that's so beautiful, because like we have this area right here where this log, and we just set up against it and hang out and talk and play in the garden, and my daughter will sit there with us, and it's really nice for her to be able to come out. She's in a wheelchair, and so we're trying to continually build up her strength by letting her sit in the grass and play and do those little 10 to 30 minute times of being out of her chair and strengthening her body up. Because even when you're in a wheelchair, if you can do strength training on your body, it's really helpful. It really is. And it also can help relieve some of the physical pain that comes with sitting down all the time. What people don't tell you is that when you are in a wheelchair, your body hurts a lot, because you're sitting down, you have all that pressure on your tailbone and your spine, and I mean, it's just hard on the body, you know. And I wish more people would be honest and open about it, instead of thinking, oh, it's easy to be in a wheelchair. It's not. There are a lot of difficulty that comes with it, and I think it's important to acknowledge that. But also, strength training really helps. So for her, she's only 5, sitting her in the grass and letting her just play with the grass builds up some of her abdominal muscles. It helps strengthen her legs, and also it's entertaining. I mean, she's a little kid. She can practice her range of motion, reaching for the grass and the different leaves and stuff in it. And it's just something fun that she can do, but also be outdoors and be included in everything that we do, because I think that that's so important. And I feel really blessed to be in a time where I can include my daughter in all of these activities, because I mean, there was a time not that long ago where children with disabilities and family members with disabilities weren't given those basic rights. They weren't given the right to go outside or anything else. They didn't have access to medical care or family that supported them and took care of them. And I'm glad that we're finally in a place where that's changing. And I hope it continues to change. I'll spend the rest of my life fighting to make sure that people have the rights that they need. But I think it's just really lovely that she's able to come and enjoy this space with us, which is why I have so much space in between my beds, because for me, these are 4 foot wide. And what I know from working in the hospital is that she's not going to be in a tiny wheelchair forever. So she's going to need space to kind of navigate between these beds. And even though this garden, I work it for the most part, I want her to be included. And so that's why, like, these main areas are significantly wider than 4 feet, and each bed in between them is no less than 4 feet wide in between these straight beds, so that we can get her in here, turn her around while she's in a small wheelchair, but as she ages, we can easily get her in here, put a card in here, anything that she needs, you know, so that we can all kind of be a part of it. That's really what's the most important when building this space, is I wanted my family to be a part of it no matter what. And if they choose not to be, that's fine, but I refuse to deny her or anyone else access. You know, it's the very least that we can do for people is to not deny access, right? So you can see around everything else, the blackberries and everything else are still kind of coming in, and they're coming in strong. Look how many there are. It's just absolutely incredible how much fruit this is setting this year, especially after I came and lopped most of it down. And since these are kind of an ever-bearing variety, they're going to produce and grow and produce off of those first-year canes and second-year canes. So there's a lot of food. These are the second-year canes. The first ones are just now kind of sprouting out and I'm going to see a lot of fruit set this year. So it's pretty cool. We've had these in here for over 2 years, and each year they just kind of produce more and more. They were already 2 years old when we got them, so these are 4-year-old plants, and they'll easily produce for at least 10 years. So that's one of those things where you're getting in all of these perennial varieties, which was really important to kind of ease some of the work. Now you can see the grass is not perfect here, so there's a lot of grass coming up, but I just kind of wanted to show what's going on in this area, especially since I just kind of made a video about it not too long ago, and there's been a huge amount of growth since then, but also we have figured out exactly what we're going to do with this bed, and I'm really excited about that. Now this isn't anything interesting, it's just me kind of going on and showing you my garden and talking about things that are really important to me and my family, and I know also affects a lot of people around here. So I'm excited to kind of show all of the changes that are going to be made, and the next couple of days while I am off school and I do not have surgery yet, I'm going to be getting in this the dirt, lay some cardboard down and getting some dirt in here, and hopefully I'll remember or have the time to kind of film part of that process so you can see how it works. But then Monday I have pre-op and school starts, which is rough. The second spring semester starts, and so I'm going to get all this down, plant it, but then spend the rest of my time trying to read ahead in all of my books to get ahead of school. My major is in childhood psychology, but it's not in the way that you would think it is. It's actually of studying traumatic brain diseases and the effects that they have on childhood and families, and trying to kind of come up with some solutions to help families like ours. You know, when we first found out, it was really devastating. There were not a lot of support groups, even family. They said some weird things because they didn't get it and they don't understand, and it's so easy to blame people when you're just grasping at straws, because the reality is no one wants to admit that young and innocent people get sick, and it sucks, and it's not fair, and that's just the nice way to put it. So that is, while I love gardening so much, and I thought that I wanted to go to school for agriculture, I don't want to make a job out of my passion. I want to kind of remain in control when it comes to my garden and things, but it's really important for me to kind of get the research out there and find ways to support families like ours and our family and my child as she grows. If any of us can keep just a couple of people from going through what we went through, it would be great. And so here we are. I'll hopefully have time in between all that to kind of film the peas going in and getting planted and how that process will look like. And then after those peas are cleared out, cucumbers will definitely go in this place. I really like, I can't even think of the variety all of a sudden. But there's this variety, the plants only get 2.5 feet high, and it's actually one that I've made a video on before. So I'm kind of excited to get those planted and show you what that looks like. And speaking of which, here comes my brother right up the street. He has brought drinks with him, so I'm gonna go ahead and go and get all of this situated, and I hope to show you back in time and show you what it's like. You fall.
Almost fell.
I know.